Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and a big welcome to the AGRF Youth Town Hall. Good afternoon. I actually think there were some people who are not so young who then decided to be young in that moment. That was excellent. Good afternoon and thank you so very much for having me. My name is Nozipho Shabalala. And I always get excited when I get to serve as a moderator in youthful conversations. I'm not going to bear my age, but I'm going to claim the youthfulness today. And I want to be a part of this conversation. Now, the conversation we're about to have, I think is probably the most important one to date. I know that we had the presidential summit yesterday. I know that we had the first ladies. I know that we've had experts the whole past 3 or 4 days. But actually, when we are talking about the people inheriting the future, when we are talking about the people architecting the future, you are the people we are talking about. And so this conversation is actually the conversation that births tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after, and the day after. And so it is potentially the most important in my view. Now, the way we're going to run this youth town hall is really simple. We're going to do 2 sequences. We're going to start off by just pausing and tapping into a celebratory moment. Just last night, we had the Go-Gettaz competition, which I'm going to tell you a little bit about. And we had an opportunity to acknowledge some of the continent's most dynamic, most inspirational young agripreneurs who are doing amazing things in terms of being part of the solution when it comes to food systems transformation and agricultural development. We're going to call them up on stage. We're going to give them a resounding round of applause. We're going to give them a standing ovation because they really represent the possibility that we're looking towards. And then we're then going to have a conversation. We've got representatives who I will describe as policymakers and decision makers and solution enablers. This is what they do on a daily basis. And then, of course, we've got young entrepreneurs in the room. The best part of that conversation is that I've got very little work to do. So typically, I would be the one asking the questions and doing the heavy lifting. In this instance, it's the young people who are going to be asking the questions themselves. And all I'm going to do is to make sure that I'm just holding the space and facilitating the conversation. And now, an additional thing that I want us all to remember, and I say this in my capacity as a conversation strategist, I work in conversations every single day. And I can tell you for free, nobody likes watching a conversation. As humans, we're social beings. And that means we love participating in conversations. We want to be a part of the conversation. So we're going to open it up. We're going to break all the rules of protocol that have been defining every single session up until now. And we're going to open up the conversation. And so whether you're sitting at the back or sitting in the middle of the room, we're going to try and make sure that you are able to claim your share of voice. And you're able to really make your being here in this room today count. And we're going to open up the conversational space with your experiences, with your insights, with your questions, with your stories. Because that's how we share best practice, and that's how we help each other grow. Does that sound like it's going to be a fun session? Yeah, absolutely. So, to kick us off, allow me to, I'm going to go to the podium so that I have a pair of hands to do this bit. And if I can get micro. Perfect. You will have to excuse my height. I think you can still see me just above the podium. I won't stay here for very long. So I do want us just to create a moment now just to acknowledge the Go-Gettaz from last night. Let's be reminded, of course, that Generation Africa brings us the Go-Gettaz competition, as I've said, and that this is all about celebrating young agripreneurs who are really pioneering African solutions. Now, the other thing that was very different from every other session that I've moderated so far is that I walked into this room and they actually had music playing, like real music, young people's music. So when the Go-Gettaz come up, Technical team, please do not fail me on this one. Please make sure that we are lifting the energy with the right kind of music to really celebrate them. So ladies and gentlemen, last night, the Go-Gettaz awarded 2 grand prize winners and 4 Impact Award winners, right? And we're going to invite them to join us on stage. I'm going to call them up one by one. And as we call them up, let's really, really ring out the applause. In Africa, we ululate. That's how we celebrate each other. We ululate. So this is a moment of ululation, of acknowledgement, of seeing each other, and of affirming the work that we're all doing. I'm going to start off with the first grand prize winner. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could help me recognize Esther Kimani, who is from Farmer Lifeline Technologies. Let's give Esther a big round of applause. Esther, congratulations on your award. Thank you. If you can just stay on stage for me. And Esther is from Kenya. And just very briefly, let me say that Farmer Lifeline Technologies exists to solve problems faced by farmers by using technology to come up with timely solutions. So we're not talking tech, we're doing tech. And that is courtesy of Esther and her team. Ladies and gentlemen, our second grand prize winner from yesterday, please help me welcome Mark Musinguzi. Let's give Mark a big round of applause. How amazing that Mark actually gets a track. Can we keep that trend up, please, right? And Mark, of course, is from Uganda and is from Higher Bioplastics. They are a Ugandan startup whose vision is to put sustainable food packaging in the hands of millions across the African continent. So again, ladies and gentlemen, when we're talking yesterday in the number of panels about how do we shift consumer behavior and consumer decisions, and a lot of that came back to, are we doing the right thing when it comes to packaging? Mark is at the forefront of that. It's not only getting us to make sure that we're shifting behavior, but we're doing that in a sustainable way. Thank you so much, Mark. Let's give him a big round of applause. There's a ululation in the front, and I love it. And I really wish I could match you, but that's beautiful. So ladies and gentlemen, these are our grand prize winners from last night. Let me ask them to stay on stage, because I'm going to call up now the 4 Impact Award winners that walked away with prizes last night. I'm going to ask you to please help me welcome onto stage Nancy Ireba. Let's give Nancy a big round of applause. Where's the music? I think Nancy looked like she was ready for a jam, but it's okay, we'll get one at the end. And Nancy is from Tanzania, and she's from the company Healthy Seaweed Company. And allow me to say this, Nancy reminds us that Africa is the 3rd largest producer of seaweed, being led by Zanzibar, which compromises about, or makes up for about 25,000 seaweed farmers. 80%, in case you didn't know, are women. And so what this company does is that they aim to increase local seaweed consumption for healthy living while improving the livelihoods of women seaweed farmers in Zanzibar. Let's give her a round of applause, please. Congratulations, Nancy. So when we're sitting in these policy roundtables and these high-level panel discussions, and we're talking about bringing a gender lens to food system transformation, we're doing it. We're doing it, and it's through people like Nancy that we're able to say that with confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, another Impact awardee from last night is with us in the room. Let's please put our hands together for Seynabou Dieng. Fabulous, Seynabou, congratulations. And of course, she's from Senegal, and I'll say, and Mali. Maya Sol is the name of the company. They are a food processing company that specializes in grocery store products using an inclusive model by partnering with small-scale farmers. Let's give her a round of applause, please. And I think one of the stats we heard yesterday that 80% of Africa's production comes from smallholder farmers. And so again, we keep talking about how are we going to unlock that productivity. And of course, Seynabou comes to the fore and she says, I'm already doing it. And that's the beauty of this moment. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the third of the 4 Impact Award winners, this time from Côte d'Ivoire. Please help me put our hands together for Noel Nguessen. Let's give him a round of applause. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Finally, we had some dance moves in the front. So Noel is from Côte d'Ivoire, as I've said. The company is called Lono. They provide technology and services to farmers and food processors. And they do this so that they can unlock the value in their waste streams. Let's give them a round of applause, please. That is excellent work. And so you'll be reminded, I think it was in one of the first panels we spoke about in around how do we increase the accountability and productivity in food systems. And one of the things that came up is that we've got to have the conversation about waste. And if we're not doing that, then we're not having a complete conversation. Again, Noel comes to mind as he says, I'm not only having the conversation, I'm doing it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, finally, all the way from Burundi, it's my pleasure for us to please welcome Iloge Niyomwegeri. There we go. Iloge, you looked like you were going to give me a dance move, but it was a sprint to the stage. I like that strategy. The faster I get up on there, nobody's expecting dance moves from me. But thank you very much. Iloge from Burundi. His company is called Best Food Solution. And what they've done is that they've introduced highly innovative, highly nutritious, and highly flavored chili-based products. And those products include chili oil, chili powder, sun-dried chilies. And they do that so that they can tackle post-harvest loss. And they have a success rate of up to 60% loss saved. And they also are able to avail high-quality, affordable, locally made chili products for local customers. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please give our go-getters a massive round of applause? Thank you very much. So, and yes, if you want to take photos, this is your moment. While we do that, and I'm going to invite them to take their seats in a moment, but let's get the photos in. It is important for us to also acknowledge the judges who are putting their time and energy and effort behind identifying these amazing young agripreneurs on the continent. So let's please welcome one of our judges, Mr. Edson Mpisi. Let's give him a big round of applause as he comes up. And he is the chief economist at the African Development Bank and coordinator of the Enable Youth Program, and he's got a short message for all of us. Over to you, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Nozipho. Yes, I won't take very long, but I'd like to say something on behalf of the judges. First of all, I'd like to thank Generation Africa for giving us this opportunity to come and work with you and work with the youth. And I must say this was very, very tough selection. We have the youth here who gave, really great ideas. They had passion when they were presenting it. And when we sat as judges, we spent several hours the next day trying to come up. So it was very small criteria here and there that made those who get the grand prizes. But otherwise, everyone here was a champion who participated. And I'd like to commend all the youth who are here. You're living in a great time right now. Everybody is rooting for you. All the organizations who are based here, AGRA, Corteva, AFDB, we all have programs supporting youth. So really, this is a great time for you to be living here, to be living right now. I wish I had lived at this time. And, but just before I'm just representing the judges. The judges who are here, just stand up and wave so that at least everybody can see you. All the judges who are here, just stand up and wave so that at least people can recognize you.
There we go. Round of applause, please.
Thank you very much. We were 8 judges representing different organizations who also have programs for the youth. A couple of messages for those youth who are participated in this competition. One is that all these organizations who are here, they all have programs that are here to support you. One example, I'm from the African Development Bank. We have the Enable Youth Program. It is in 16 countries and has invested over $400 million. So there are a lot of support for you at this time. Whether it's AGRA, whether it's the World Bank, whether it is IFAD, they all have programs for you. So everybody's rooting for you. So have that confidence to move forward. The second message, reach out and get support. Don't try to do everything yourself. I've seen youth at different competitions where as they come out, they partner, they work together. Somebody in Tanzania, somebody in Uganda says, let's work together. So reach out to all the other youth in the ecosystem here, but also reach out to the organizations that are here that are supporting you. So congratulations, all the best, and you're all champions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well done. You may take your seat. Thank you very much, sir. Can we give them a final round of applause, and as well as we applaud the judges in this moment? Fabulous. So that's our first sequence done, and now we're getting down to the business of conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, this conversation, and I want to set the context for the conversation, is that we want to invite, as I've said earlier, policymakers, decision makers, solution enablers. We've just heard Mr. Mpisi saying these are the people who are running programs that are targeted at young people. These are the people who are saying we want to put our money where our mouths are. These are the people who are saying we want to better understand how do we better support young people. And we know that the best way to understand that is to be in direct conversation with those young people. It's not in reports, it's not in other activities, but through conversation. So we're going to invite some of those policymakers, decision makers, and enablers to join us on the stage. And then what we have is that we have a number of young entrepreneurs in the room, many of them who are sitting in the front row. And we're going to invite a few of them to join us on stage. If we could, we would have had every single one of them on stage. And they are also going to be really doing the work of posing questions to the decision makers and the policy makers and solution enablers. This is a co-creative conversation. It's not a combative conversation. We're trying to figure out how do we use this conversational space to make progress faster and to do that together. And so this is the purpose of the conversation. It is to ask the difficult questions. It is to ask the courageous questions. But to Mr. Mpisi's point, to keep coming back to how can we work together in partnership, in collaborations, in funder-fundee relations for us to be able to do that. And so allow me to welcome from the policymaker, decision maker, and solution enabler side. And I'm going to ask these that I'm going to be inviting now to take their seats on my right-hand side. So this side of the screen, you see I had to close my eyes to remind myself of left and right. So this side of the stage. And so I'm going to invite Ambassador of Mozambique to Rwanda, His Excellency Amade Miquidade. Let's please give him a big round of applause. Your Excellency, we're looking forward to hearing some of the policy approaches, how we're thinking about how do we make sure that young people are part of the food systems transformation we've been talking about on the continent. We also have Dr. Florence Sibomana in the room. Florence, let's give you a round of applause as she comes up. And Florence is a senior program officer at Path Rwanda, and she's a youth leader for the Nutrition Sun Movement. Now, we heard a little bit about the Sun Movement yesterday, and today we really get to focus specifically on young people. Now, we had anticipated to also receive Honorable Charles Ellah, the Minister of Agriculture from Gabon, so that as soon as the Honorable arrives, he will be invited to join us on stage, and the same goes for the Assistant Minister of Agriculture from Botswana, the Honorable Beauty Manake. And now to the young people. I'm feeling very short, so I'm going to start moving. I'm going to start off by inviting back Seynabou Dieng. Seynabou, you were with us a few seconds ago. And I'm going to ask you, I'm going to take this seat here, and so I'm going to ask my young people to fill up for me on this end. And I'm going to ask Ronald Dianga, who's going to tell us a little bit about Kenarava and what they do as a company, to also join us on stage. I'm going to ask Julio Chilela from Agro Marketplace and co-founder of Kepia. Julio, please, if you can take your seat right there next to Ronald. Thank you very much. Nancy, let's invite you back onto the stage as well. And let's get you right there next to Julio. And I've got space, so I'm going to use that space because I've got 2 seats. And I'm going to welcome back Noel Ngeson. Let's welcome you. You had a dance move. That's why I'm inviting you back. A dance move deserves a seat on stage. He just gave me the most confused look. Let's have you sitting there at the end. And let me see if Marie-Ange, are you with us, Marie-Ange? Perfect. And Marie-Ange is the founder of Zimmer Company, and she'll tell us a little bit about it. You don't need your microphone for this one. And there is a microphone there on the floor. Allow me also just to acknowledge some of the other entrepreneurs who couldn't be on stage because of space, but who are here with us and who are also going to be posing questions. Let me start with Yvette Dixon-Tete. Yvette, are you here with us? There she is, so you'll be hearing from Yvette. Thank you so much, Yvette. Imen Hibri from Robocare Tunisia, I saw you earlier. There she is. And Caleb Sotem, I saw you, Caleb. Fabulous. There you are as well. So we'll have additional questions coming from all the young people in the room, including yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. So where possible, we're also going to invite you to pose questions and comments. I thought what might be a useful place to start is maybe to start off with His Excellency, and to invite you, Your Excellency, just to share with us, in your capacity as Ambassador or High Commissioner of Mozambique to Rwanda, what are you seeing as initiatives that are working for young people to be part of the agricultural sector and to be part, of course, of food systems transformation? Very briefly, over to you, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Bonjour. Boa tarde. Bravo, first of all, I would like to address my apologies to speak in Portuguese, because English is not at the moment the language which I can address what I've got in my mind or on my experience. So I'm afraid to make some mistakes. You know, Mozambique is colonized by the Portuguese, a country which has got more than 20 local languages. So we had to choose one of the languages which everyone can catch, and it was Portuguese as official language. So that's why I'm also talking in Portuguese. I'm going to talk in Portuguese. English, because we are neighbors with my sisters from South Africa and other English speakers countries. I believe that on the next AGRA I will be able to address in English. To be here with the youth, it takes me back some years ago. when I was with the same energy I could see today here. I started to have my responsibility when I was 17 years old. So I used to talk to my kids and some other youth around me that that is your time to do the present and build the future, because this is time which you are able to get a lot of capacity using the ITs, using another means of getting information, which on our time we will not be able to get that for many reasons. So allow me please to address in Portuguese. And because we are here to share our potentiality, that's why we are all here on this summit, which are going to learn from different persons from different countries, what someone has got to address to other one. So I think that you have learned today to say boa tarde, which means good afternoon. Thank you. Going to the question about how to increase, how to make things happen. One of the things which I would like to say in English and start with Portuguese, it is the youth mustn't sit down on the shade and waiting for those one who makes the policy to draw and make it for you. You must build a capacity of implementing what the policies are made to make your present and the future to happen. Moçambique tem como a agricultura dos seus principais veículos para o desenvolvimento econômico deste país. E a agricultura é aquela que envolve o maior número de participantes jovens. Os jovens que se encontram nas zonas rurais, onde Moçambique tem o privilégio de ter um território extenso, com solos aráveis, preparados para a atividade agrícola. E dizer mais, são solos aráveis e virgens, porque grande parte do nosso território não foi explorado intensamente para a atividade agrícola. A atividade agrícola em Moçambique, na sua maioria, consubstancia-se pela atividade dos pequenos farmeiros. É agricultura familiar. Estes pequenos farmeiros, para uma população de Moçambique de aproximadamente 30 milhões de habitantes, tem cerca de 4,2 milhões de pequenos farmeiros, que correspondem a 95% desta população global agrícola. Referimos ainda que, devido à situação de instabilidade provocada por conflito interno no nosso país, Moçambique tornou-se independente em 1975 e no ano de 1976 sofreu uma agressão militar que durou 16 anos. o que obrigou a que as populações rurais movimentassem para a cidade à procura de maior segurança. Durante este período de 16 anos, nasceram crianças que se tornaram jovens e perderam este contacto com a natureza através da atividade agrícola, que é a maior fonte de subsistência das populações rurais. Estes mesmos jovens tiveram dificuldades em voltar para o habitat dos seus pais, na medida em que esse habitat não lhes dizia muito, senão as ligações parentais, e muitos deles continuaram a viver na cidade. Então a pergunta que nós faremos é: como é que sobreviveram e sobrevivem estes jovens que nunca estiveram em contacto com os meios de produção agrícola? E a resposta é: foram realizando atividades comerciais, vendendo e revendendo pequenos objetos para a sua subsistência. Hoje vemos nas nossas cidades os nossos jovens empreendedores vendendo recargas de cell phone, airtime, vendendo pequenos objetos, e a pergunta que se faz é: por que é que estes jovens não voltam para o campo? É porque eles nunca estiveram no campo. E aí o papel do Estado em traçar políticas para levar estes jovens para produzirem e fazerem a sua riqueza. Mas há um outro aspecto que eu também quero aqui compartilhar. E permitam-me que eu fale em inglês, que é para chegar imediatamente a essa mensagem. E perdoem-me os erros gramaticais. On my time, when I was young, my parents used to tell me, go to school, study to be a doctor. It was normal to hear in all the families there. It was quite difficult to hear that a family has encouraged the kids to study to be engineer on agriculture or to go to a technical school to learn how to produce crops. Because to be a doctor, it was a status. So that mentality is still on our mind. So this makes us to change the narrative that to study doesn't mean necessary to go on a theoretical course. Deste modo, queremos aqui transmitir a experiência que Moçambique está neste momento a empreender através de um programa de criação de escolas técnicas em que os estudantes terão a possibilidade de entrar para a escola secundária, mas virada para a formação técnica no ramo da agricultura. A agricultura envolve outras técnicas, outras ciências. É necessário que tenhamos capacidades mecânicas, porque vão trabalhar com equipamentos. É necessário que tenhamos capacidades elétricas, porque para fazer funcionar os equipamentos é necessária a componente elétrica, de eletricidade. É necessário que se formem técnicos no uso das tecnologias de informação, porque neste mundo atual, em que as tecnologias de informação jogam um papel fulcral para que se conceba aquilo que é a melhor forma de realizar as atividades agrícolas, através da investigação das melhores sementes, através da investigação dos solos adequados, o momento climatérico onde se pode produzir determinadas culturas e assim escolher também as melhores culturas que dão os incomings para a renda de cada um dos agricultores. Quero também aqui referir aos seguintes aspectos. A agricultura é como uma transmissão de geração para geração daquilo que é a herança. Deixe-me explicar. Qualquer um de nós, quando era mais jovem, encontrou na sua farma, ao redor da sua casa, uma árvore. Seja ela uma árvore de sombra ou uma árvore de fruta. E essa árvore foi plantada por alguém da família ou que vivia no ambiente familiar. Então, a agricultura é assim. Nós produzimos para colher hoje, mas para deixar um legado para amanhã, para os nossos filhos, para os nossos netos. Então, temos que criar esta percepção em nós jovens, de que ir para a agricultura não significa ter o rendimento imediato, embora concebamos que existam culturas para a colheita próxima, outras a médio prazo e outras, quiçá, a longo prazo. Se eu for plantar milho, eu sei que só 3 ou 4 meses depois eu vou colher aquele milho. Mas a colheita desse milho não significa necessariamente consumi-la depois dos 4 meses. Então é preciso criar condições para o armazenamento, para ser usado num outro momento. Numa outra campanha, usarem-se aquelas sementes para voltar ao mesmo ciclo de produção. Por isso, vamos plantar hoje para colher amanhã e para passar para as outras gerações. O governo moçambicano traçou um programa que se designa de sustentar. Sustentar, na língua portuguesa, significa criar condições para eu alimentar e ser capaz de poder dar uma direção à minha vida. Porque sem alimento, nós estamos confrontados com a fome. Onde há fome, há doenças. Onde há doenças, há a eliminação de capacidades. Então, este programa Sustenta, que o governo moçambicano criou, ele é um programa nacional para a integração da agricultura em cadeia familiar, com vista a criar esta cadeia de valores. É um programa que envolve 5.000 jovens, e aqui querer dizer que em Moçambique, mais de 66% dos jovens com menos de 25 anos são a população do nosso país. Então, não me estou a referir jovens com 30 ou 35 anos. Estou a falar de jovens com menos de 25 anos de idade. Então, nós estamos a procurar levar ao ambiente familiar esta organização para que eles se estruturem e sejam capazes de poder dar continuidade aos seus anseios, aos seus desejos de tornar a agricultura um negócio, de trazer uma capacidade. Thank you. Can I interrupt for a moment?
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I think what you've done beautifully is you've really diagnosed some of the challenges that we are faced with. So as you speak about, you know, urbanization and the migration to cities and how that's created this gap between a connection between young people and rural rural areas or the agricultural sites, but also the response. And of course, you speak about a response from a perspective of the Mozambican government, but for the purposes of our conversation here, we also want to hear what's possible, right? So there might be different responses, but it's really interesting to hear some of the examples coming out of Mozambique, but also very beautifully speaking about some of the more sentimental issues that we don't often hear. The fact that, you know, agriculture is the connection back to our heritage and taking us back to those moments where we're thinking about that tree, that garden, that space. And I think we can all imagine that. I grew up in mango trees. And so as you say that, it definitely comes to life. So what I want to do, and I want to thank you for that, I want to open up the conversation a little bit. I want to come to you, Dr. Florence. I want to give you an opportunity, just briefly, give us a highlight of the Nutrition Sun movement, the work that you're doing in terms of young people in particular, and how you're ensuring that young people are part of food systems transformation. And then we'll open up to the young people to start the conversation. So if you can spend 1 or 2 minutes just on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity to be here as a youth leader for Nutrition and Sun movement. What I can say as a Sun movement, especially with my Lord of Youth Leader for Nutrition, we ensure youth representation in all sectors that improve food systems and health and nutrition, especially focusing on the issue identified by ambassadors. As young people, we are still taking this role of agriculture, especially for uneducated people, but we really want it even to be a good employment opportunities even for young people. So that's one of the things we advocate for. And we also advocate for young people's role, especially in the formulation of those policies that are there to help in improvement of food systems. And we engage young people, especially in driving community advocacy campaigns when it comes to good practices of home garden in order to ensure food securities and making food securities and the health and nutrition everyone's business. But as well, when we are talking about improved food system for us in Sun, we don't even forget about health and nutrition. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Let's give Dr. Florence a round of applause, please. I think it's a very concise way of speaking to three very important issues. Representation. So how do we make sure that young people have a seat and a voice at the table? And you're saying representation is important. You've spoken about creating pathways to employment. So back to the ambassador's point, how do we get young people back across the value chain of agriculture? Because agriculture is not only at the farming level, there are various opportunities across the value chain. And then, of course, you say you focus on best practice. And so part of the conversation we need to have, even as young people, is begin to say, how do we access best practice? How do we know that it's best practice? How do we build on what others are doing so we're not constantly reinventing the wheel in our respective spaces every single time? So I want to thank you for that. I do want to say, just before I get to the young people, that there are other organizations in the room that I know are doing amazing things when it comes to young people making sure that young people are really being pulled into the agricultural sector. They're really being pulled into food systems transformation. And I want to break another rule before I come to young people. I feel like I've been breaking rules all afternoon. Now Dr. Kalibata is here. I need to make sure that I don't break more rules. I want to break another rule, and that is this: if you are an organization and you're in the audience and you want an opportunity just to highlight in 30 seconds what your organization does, this is your opportunity to do that, because what it does is that it gives our young people more than 2 access points for the conversation. It gives our young people an opportunity to say, just as that organization is doing, this is the issue or question that I want to raise. So let me just get a sense. Is there anybody in the audience who represents an organization that is part of the solution? I think, sir, that's a stretch. It's not a hand up. So there's a couple of hands. Can I get a microphone, and can I get a team member, please? Here's a microphone. If you can please help me, sir. Let's quickly just do a couple of hands here in the front. Just tell us, what is the name of your what's your name, the name of the organization, and how are you part of the solution in 30 seconds?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm so much honored and a pleasure to be here. I'm called Winnie Atieno Onyango from Plant Village, Kenya. And we democratize free access to knowledge and technology. And our organization is actually run by youth. 99% are youth. And we are based in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Nepal, Honduras, Mozambique, and Burkina Faso. Thank you so much. And His Excellency, thank you so much, because you also have some base in your country. And I was there for the training early this year. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, Plant Village, Kenya, you spoke so quickly. In 10 seconds, what does your organization do?
We democratize free access of knowledge to technology to small-scale holder farmers across Africa, and I can say across the globe, actually. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So, democratizing free access of knowledge and information to smallholder farmers. So we can see a beautiful opportunity to have a conversation about the impact and how that's happening. I think there was a couple of hands. Let's take this hand and let's take that hand, and then we're going to come to the stage. So if you can keep your hand up, please, madam, so she can see you. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aline Mugisho, and I'm the Executive Director for Youth in Agribusiness for the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture, IITA. In 30 seconds, now that a difficult one, but what we do is to make sure there is an enabling environment for youth and youth-led enterprises. We create capacity development for young people, incubate them through Agribusiness Hub for them to have an enabling and also understand what it takes to start an agribusiness, link them with investors, and finally enable a financial model that suits their needs. And we do that in 26 countries. And this year, for the next 5 years, we're taking up 10 more countries.
Fantastic.
And, we use funding as startup to assist them in setting up their business and gaining experience, but also building a financial viability profile. Thank you.
That's excellent. Can you give a round of applause, please? So, in case you didn't hear that, it's the entire life cycle, an enabling environment, capacity building, incubation, linking with investors, and helping to build a sustainable financial model. There's one more hand that I'd like to give an opportunity right here in the front. Hand right up so the gentleman can see you, right next to Dr. Kalibata. What is your organization? How are you supporting young people?
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Lauren Shakwansa from Ghana, Head of Operations for Dieng Agri-Systems. So what we do, one of the challenges the ambassador for Mozambique mentioned was young people tend to move to the urban cities a lot, and then they are detached from the rural areas. So what we do is we bring farming to the urban areas. Since the young people want to live in these urban areas, we empower them to still practice food production in these urban areas. So if they don't want to move to rural areas, you can still farm through aquaponics farming, where they grow both fish and vegetables together, using less resources. So that's what we do.
What's the name of the organization?
Dieng Agri-Systems.
Thank you so much. So Farming doesn't need to happen in the rural areas. It can be in where the young people are in the cities. Thank you very much for that. Let's give her a round of applause. And time permitting, I might come back to the floor. I've got to come back to my young people. Now, I'm going to ask Ronald, is this you, Ronald? If you can move your chair just slightly back. It was supposed to be my chair, that's why it's forward. And now I can't see Julio be next to you. We'll find your mic, not to worry. Okay, so let me then we'll come to you first. The opportunity here is firstly just to get you sharing with us in 30 seconds, what does your business do? And then an opportunity to either ask a question, either to Dr. Florence or His Excellency or anybody that you think in the audience might have an answer, and to say, this is the question that I want, that I am fixated on, that I would love for us to think about how do we solve. And I'm going to limit it to one question because there's quite a number of us right now.
Yes.
Go for it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for the presentation. Thank you so much, Doctor. I'm Seynabou. I maybe won't go back to the presentation. She did it already. My question is regarding with what His Excellency said about young people being involved in policy. So nowadays we see it with GoGettaz that a numbers of very skilled young people are interested in agriculture. So getting youth into agriculture for me is not an issue. It's not going to be an issue anymore. But my problem is that whenever you bring youth in agriculture, they face a lot of issues. Access to market is a big problem. Access to capital is a bigger problem. Now, for a young people living in Africa and having business in Africa, it's easier to reach out with donors and partners like AGRA that I thank, than to reach out to our own governments. Those are the realities we have in our countries. So I would like to know what is Mozambique doing to help champions access policymakers and leaders, and how does it work? Thank you.
Beautifully put. Thank you for that question. So how do we really get young people involved if the reality is that young people struggle to access their governments and oftentimes have to even look outside the country? Is there best practice? What's the best way of getting young people to access their governments? And what can you give an example of how you're doing it in Mozambique?
Thank you. I would like to emphasize that even in our government, it's composed by more than 50% of youth, which has brought a new vision of how to address the policies inclusive of the youth. I would like to give one example of more than one about a group of youth which they decided to build a company.
Yeah.
And the leader of that group decided to join 100 young boys and girls to be shareholder of that company. Can you imagine that those ones who didn't start to work, how they could afford money to build a company? So what they have decided? They have decided, first of all, to draw a plan of viability of this company.
Yeah.
Once that, they approached to the government institution, because it was on tourism, to present their plan, their project, and they say that they have joined the money short for each one, and what they want to have is the stamp from the government to deal with the financial institution,
Right.
which could provide them with the capacity to start with the project. And since they had from the government this green light, and the financial institution could understand and agreed that that project would have legs to run, they have approved it. The other way of helping the youth on those programs, especially in agriculture, the government is providing now with some equipment.
Right.
Since tractors and other mechanical equipment for them to produce, and also the government organizing a value chain between them, which means, first of all, to have those extension workers who teach them how to deal with agriculture. And later, those ones will be, in order to teach the others, they will also continue to teach the others who are going to choose to be producers.
So, Your Excellency, two points, and I think it's a really helpful response, Seynabou, because on the one hand, we're hearing government playing the role of financial backer. So government coming in and saying, how do we de-risk you as you go and approach commercial banks? And that's something we want to play back into the audience to say, could that be something that you could be pushing for in your own country? But also what I'm hearing is government comes in with the high capital equipment and to say, before you can afford the equipment, let's give you access to the equipment so that you begin production. Again, the beauty of this conversation is that we begin to ask, could this be done in my country, and what needs to be true? So thank you for that. Ronald, what's your question? And maybe Ronald Kenavara, tell us a little bit about what you do, and then please pose your question.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my name is Ronald Dieng. First and foremost, I must say I'm very pleased to be here because it's also my birthday month. I think that's one of the exciting things about AGRF. It always happens in the month of September. But I think as Kenarava, we are an agribusiness advisory company, and we're based out in Nairobi, Kenya. And one of the things that we realized is after our training with my colleagues in Israel, we realized there's a big gap in trying to provide advisory service that are youth-led and are youth-centric.
Yeah.
And so we came up with an outfit that can be able to provide insights and support in that spirit of peer-to-peer mentorship to provide that kind of support to other young people in the agribusiness sector. But number two, we are a for-profit company.
Yeah.
And so we have also taken up the challenge to not only wait, as His Excellency said, but take the opportunity to also provide this service to other different companies. And we have worked with a range of private companies and also non-governmental organizations.
I love that, an advisory service that is youth-led and youth-centric and is for profit, which is also very important. What's your question?
Right. Thank you very much. First and foremost, allow me first to esteem the words of the speakers that have gone before, because I think they were spot on some of the few things that I would agree with. And just before I ask my question, I think the issue around incubation and I think also in our agriculture being our heritage is quite critical. Because I didn't have the privilege of growing on a farm, but I'm working in agriculture now. I have gone through the hard substance of being an agripreneur as a result of what I would call my drive. But I can imagine if I had the context of an agricultural farm, I could be able to identify these opportunities right from when I was growing up. So I think those are very important things. So my question is, and I think His Excellency, this I would direct to you, because you, in your comment, mentioned about the power of technology, and you believe that we are living in a time, us as the young people, who are having access to some of these technologies. And I think also Mr. Isipisu also made a comment around this, that in this time and generation, we have the privilege of having technology. So my question is, in your interventions and strategy as government, understanding the importance of technology, how are you making sure that the investments that you're putting and the interventions that you're making are really dependent and are pegged on technology as an enabler? Because again, like you said, as young people in our millennial economy, we prefer to do things the millennial way. If I want to do, say, business with Nozi, I prefer to just send you your invoice on WhatsApp as opposed to an email.
Yeah.
So how are you making sure that you embed technology in your interventions and strategies so that then we can create that ecosystem for the young people to thrive in the way they want to do business?
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Ronald. And I'm going to come to now, Your Excellency. But I think the point that you make, you know, as you go back to the heritage reflection, the generational context of agriculture is so important. And I think about my own scenario in South Africa, where those who are dominant players in agriculture are that because they grow up in agriculture. And so it's such an important conversation that's emerged unexpectedly in this particular space. Your Excellency, how should governments be thinking about how they put technology at the center of all the initiatives that involve young people around entrepreneurship? Because the language that young people speak is called technology.
Thank you. I would like to say that one of the things which we have discussed on this summit, which has been brought for all of us who is attending this summit, it is to look for investment. We, as Africa, we need investment to lift up our project of agriculture, because Africa has got potentiality of producing for Africa and for export out of Africa. But that means to need investment. And in our case, we are sharing and we are discussing, and we had that opportunity of starting with some investors who have supplied with technology to the rural area, to those farmers, which means that there is experience of one farmer to have a network of 25 other small farmers. Using that technology in order to planning, to choose the kind of seeds to address to those people, the production and the cycle of the production. So they are able to sit down together and to put all on the equipment which they think that will be helping the production of that group of. So without those capacity, and because we are not expecting them at the first investment to give back the money. But later, once we lift up the kind of equipment, of course, they will have like time enough to pay monthly the equipment which has been addressed for them.
Florence, let me bring your voice in here, because I think that's a really good response. You spoke about looking for best practice. What best practice have you seen when it comes to the use of technology in agriculture for young people?
Thank you so much. As His Excellency Ambassador mentioned, as we are discussing that now, agriculture field is still taken for uneducated or poor people. It's very important when we are discussing technology when it comes to agriculture, as my brother mentioned that, because to make sure agriculture is attractive to young people, we need to involve that issue of technology and even helping them to access it. So currently what we are advocating for is helping some institutions for young people to have access on that, either through commercial institutions, so that they can get those equipment with the technology at low cost to make sure that they can improve their agriculture activities.
Absolutely important. So technology at the center of all agricultural initiatives. Julio, your quick agro marketplace co-founder of Kepia, tell us about your business. And what's the question that you'd like to put to all of us today?
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity. We in Kepia, we have a network of rural shops in different parts of the country. What we do is to provide inputs for smallholder farmers and help them to produce more. They have like 10 hectares to produce, but they produce less than 1. And we want to double or triple what they are doing. And we also help them to take those products and take it to supermarkets around the cities where they really need. And we have this network already made of shops and supermarkets. This is what we do.
And your question, Julio?
Yes, I would like to put my question to Your Excellency. Are there any policies that force financial institutes to give money to young entrepreneurs? Because we sometimes we know that policies are created, but there are it is difficult for them to get those monies or those funds, or you give like time for them to, okay, you have like 1 or 2 months to give 15 credits for young entrepreneurs. Policies like that, are there?
Yeah. It's an excellent question. I also want to open it wide in case somebody has an experience. In your country, is there a policy, and I'm going to use your words, Julio, is there a policy that forces, and I'm putting forces in inverted commas, or let me use a nicer word, that stipulates that a certain percentage of lending must go to young people? Because it would be really good to know if there's a best practice around that. But Your Excellency, your thoughts on that, and if you're in the audience and you have an example of that, or you've seen it, or it's in your country, let us know how might policy push commercial institutions to really show up for young people is essentially where we're going. Your Excellency.
Thank you. We recently have created one financial institution which is called the Investment Bank, which is going to deal with the finance of these youth programs. But on other way, about 2 weeks ago, more or less 2 to 3 weeks ago, His Excellency the President took the decision on the Ministers' Council that the tax on agriculture must come down, especially on acquisition of the equipment and the other necessary products for agriculture.
Yeah.
So which means it's going to release the weight of the acquisition of those equipments.
Yeah, that's excellent. And so I just want to play that back if we've all heard that. Firstly, a special investment vehicle, if I can call it that is designed to support young people in agriculture. Do you have that in your country, and how do you push for it if you don't? But also, how do we then, instead of trying to use regulatory reform to force commercial banks into a place where they feel that they become uncompetitive, instead look at the tax regime and say, how might we have the right incentives to then reduce the burden of tax from those in the agricultural sector? I think that's an excellent response. So thank you for a very good question. Nancy, we've already introduced your organization, so maybe just for you to say, what is the question you have for us today?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. And before I pose my question, I just remember 2 days ago when I was out of the pitch, someone came to ask me, "Are you a preacher?" I did not understand why she asked me that, but maybe I sound like a preacher, so I'll try to keep my question straight to the point. First of all, for Honorable Ambassador, I concur with you when you say that when you grew up, you were taught to go to school to study to be a doctor. Let me tell you that you are not alone. I myself was told by my dad, go to study and be a doctor. But today I'm a seaweed farmer, but seaweed got me to sit in this panel with you, in which I'm so proud. So if I can go straight to the question, I would like to direct it to Dr. Florence. For me, a personal realization during COVID-19 was the importance of having nutritious, organically farmed, healing foods, not only from our lands, but also from our oceans. But what I came to realize is that when it comes to farming nutritious food, or when it comes to selling point of view for entrepreneurs like mine, we truly struggle on how we tell it to the people. I really wanted to know your views on how, like entrepreneur like mine who are advertising about health and nutrition, how do we reach people and how do we make money at the same time, because also making money is very important. Like for my case, I'm turning seaweed into seaweed-based foods, but I find like I'm still struggling because I need to put a lot of, to educate people about the health benefits first. And right now, I'm inspired by my fellow go-getters. I see my fellow go-getters like Zima Health, making pumpkin biscuits and making chilies. Then I'm starting to think maybe I should make my seaweed, sorry for using this word, but it has been used today, make seaweed more sexier by creating such products. But I just want to know, how do we sell nutritious foods to people to make them want to eat and to buy and just to make this industry grow bigger? Yeah.
Nancy, it's an excellent question, and you've reminded me of the comment that we heard earlier on about the organization that actually goes all the way to helping businesses with their financial model. So how do you commercialize the idea as effectively as possible? But to Your Excellency, and I'm going to come to you, Florence, as well with this, and we're going to keep it brief. But really, the question is, how do we shift consumer behavior? Is the question. How do we make seaweed sexy is a part of that question. And how do we help entrepreneurs really begin to commercialize their products and ideas? And this is not an emergency drill. I think people are performing next door. So all is well. We shall continue. Over to you, Your Excellency.
Thank you. This is a huge challenge. Because to commercialize products, we have to face with different situations like we are facing. The area of production is on rural area, far from the commercial ground.
Yeah.
So which means to have a good roads, the properly conditioned for transport, so it means that the means of transportation of the goods, and also to have the market, internal market and external market.
Yeah.
Let me give you one example. What's happening in Maputo. Maputo is the capital of Mozambique. We have got one place called the Green Zone, where the young girls and boys, they produce vegetables and they supply the market in town.
Yeah.
But who transport are the women, especially women. Women, they transport, but they have to rent cars. And the owner of those cars,
yeah,
they charge a huge price. So it means that they go to the market and they sell it on high price in order to finance what they had to pay, and also they take the profit. So what I know from the municipality, they are now drawing storage where they can go and take those products, and those one interested, they will go there and buy from them.
Okay.
So that could be.
So I think, so Nancy, yes, I'm going to come to you now. So I think, Nancy, it's a really good answer around infrastructure investment and having young farmers and players in the agricultural sector in the center of that. I know that, Florence, you want to add to it as well.
What I want focus on?
Yeah.
Okay. What I really want to focus on is more on healthy diet behaviors.
Yes.
Especially as a medical doctor, but also as an advocate for nutrition. One of the issues we are really struggling with today on my organization where I'm working, Sun Movement and Path, is to build improved knowledge when it comes to health and nutrition choices. And one of the issues we have identified, as you said, it's issue of making health and nutrition choices. And we are also having an issue of those nutritious food are quite expensive in some areas. So one of the strategies we are having in place currently is especially engaging young people, especially in Rwanda. We are having a project called Youth-Powered Nutrition. And that project was there to support young people by understanding nutrition in wide aspect, not only just eating, but also improving their nutritional behaviors, because we are believing that in the future, they are the one to grow those healthy, nutritious food, but they are also the one to guide their families on health nutrition choices they have to make. So that's why we are really putting effort in improving knowledge so that we can change behavior, and we believe that it's a long term. But meanwhile, we are advocating as well on rebranding, because we are seeing that unhealthy food, they have bigger brand than health food. So at that time, it's very difficult to sell healthy or nutritious food when we are not that strategic when it comes to branding. So for government side, we are really advocating for proper branding strategies with, of course, entrepreneurs. But when it comes to our people, we are improving their knowledge when it comes to what are the healthy nutrition choices they should make and what is the impact of health nutrition to their lives.
Sure, I think that's excellent. So I'm going to save everybody's voice by changing what's left a little bit. So what I'm going to do, we've got 5 questions left. I'm going to invite each of the people to give us their question. I'll then take them as themes, and then I'll come back because I can hear poor Florence is projecting at the top of her voice for us to be heard over the music. So we're going to be agile in the flow. So Noel, let me come to you. And I'm going to ask you to pose your question, and I'll capture it. Then I'm going to come to you, Marianne. Pose your question. I'll come to you, Birian, and then I'll come to you as well, Yvette, and then Caleb. And then we'll put them together and give our panelists an opportunity to respond to the group of questions. So go for it, Noel.
Okay, so I was introduced by you earlier. So I'm a co-founder of a company called Lono that's making machines locally for farmers and processors to make more
We're going
income.
to need your outside voice to be bigger, bigger than the performance.
Gets better like this. So then, Lono, company based in Cote d'Ivoire. I'm the co-founder and CTO. We make machines locally with patents that help farmers and processors use their waste to generate more income: biogas, animal feed, and fertilizer. Now, my question is specifically on the links between water, energy, and food. Right? Because we're talking about food security, but there's definitely energy poverty that's a real thing, urban and rural, and water resources that are needed as part of food, but also part of agriculture. So how does, I mean, this is also to the audience as the mic will go around, but to Doctor and the ambassador, just how does policy take that into account, the link between these two things? Like, we see the challenges in Cote d'Ivoire working with our own government, where there's 5 ministries you have to talk to for your single activity. Because the Ministry of Environment, works on pollution and, protecting the environment. Ministry of Agriculture, obviously on agriculture, but there's also the Ministry of Energy, because of the waste can become gas, methane, can become briquette, so that's energy, etc., etc. So how does, within policy, or what can you give as experiences you have, or any insights about how policy can smoothen that challenge? Because the ministries obviously have their specific interests. They don't necessarily want to share responsibilities. This is a real challenge for us as entrepreneurs to move forward in this specific sector of agriculture, waste, becoming energy, fertilizer, and that type of thing.
Yeah, it's an excellent question because we're always talking about a whole of government approach. But practically, what does that actually look like, and how do we ensure that those linkages between those policy aspirations are actually real? So thank you, Noel, for that. Marianne, what is, maybe tell us a little bit about Zima and then your question. It's going to come on in a second. They're just upping your microphone. There we go. It's on.
Thank you so much. My name is Marianne Zomukagahima, as you said. I own Zima Healthy Group. We add value to the pumpkin and pumpkin seed. We make extra virgin oil from pumpkin seed. We also make healthy and nutritious cookies, roasted seed, and pumpkin seed flour. Or we've equipped with necessary nutrition value everyone here deserves to have. So my question is, as someone from the food industry and in healthy nutrition, I would love to ask whoever we have here on the stage, whenever you enter into the supermarket in our countries, you find the 90% of the product within the supermarket are imported, either from China or from Europe. And those products are well branded, packed, and everything rated like that. Every day when we sit like this, we always repeat the problem, the challenge, the policies, and everything. But what are the practical measures the policymakers do have or decide so that if you enter into the hotels, you will not find such kind of imported products are the one disputed into our hotels. If we have like 15 hotels in Rwanda and 19% of what they feed us are imported, why we are here sitting fighting for 50K just to improve ourselves? Even this market can be enough for us. But what do you do as policymakers just to make us sustain ourselves? We've equipped us with a good market and be sure that tomorrow, if I do not have like this kind of grant, I will always survive. Please tell us.
Excellent question. Thank you. So 90% of food on supermarkets' shelves is imports. What are we doing for local producers? And Mary-Ange is saying even just this market would be enough if policy came to the party. Yvette, let's come to you from the floor and let's get you talking to us a little bit about Pure and Just Company. What do you guys do? And what's the question you want to add to the basket? If I can ask you to stand so we can see you.
Hello. Oh. Sorry. Hi, my name is Yvette, and I'm here representing...
Can I ask you to lift your microphone?
I'm here... Oh, there we go. Wow. I'm here representing Pure and Just Food, and we catalyze African potential using climate-smart agro-processing. So very simply, we transform fresh fruit into dried fruit products, and in the process, we're transforming lives. So my question is for the panel, especially for the policymakers, and it sounds very general, and it sounds not serious, but I mean it very seriously. What is the best way to talk to and to reach politicians? Because as my fellow delegates have said, we spend a lot of time going to conferences and appealing and appealing and appealing, and it feels like there isn't actually any change. So what's the best way to reach politicians? Do we have to do some naming and shaming in the media? Do we have to, you know, advocate by knocking on doors? Should we write think pieces? What would you say is the best way to talk to politicians? And I know it's going to be different for different countries, but any suggestions would be helpful.
Thanks, Yvette. Excellent question. And it's a little bit of an echo of the earlier question, right? So it seems to be certainly not a frivolous question at all, but how do we actually get that connection and that line of communication without having to resort to naming and shaming in the media? So, Imen, let's bring your voice in. Let's get you telling us a little bit about Robocare in Tunisia and your question, please. Can I ask you to stand so the camera can catch you as well? Thank you. So push it up and then give it 2 seconds. There we go.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I think that the challenge is how to link our grandfather growers, our expertise to research, to technology. For example, when we plant tomatoes, there is a lot of expertise in my grandfather and our heritage, and there is many research done on this. On all the stage of growth of the plant, it needs some health, some care, some types of fertilizer, some type of water and of pesticide. We need here to link between our expertise, the research, and the technology. For that, we need to monitor the state of the state of the plant through technologies. For that, I introduced RoboCare. We take care of plants through technology. So, yeah, our mission is to scan all the plants with drones, with smart system, using hyperspectral and multispectral cameras that see the invisible, so that we provide farmers the health state of each plant before ever it will be visible. I will introduce the case of a proposition and the case of my country, Tunisia. The government, for us, as startups, the government, when we introduce technology to farmers, the government pay 50% of our invoice to the startups, so that they encourage farmers to use technologies. So it can be a proposition. I don't know really the state of your government. And then the second point, how do you, what initiative and practice point that you did to encourage farmers to use technology, for example, when farmers need to go to the bank and get investment. For my country also, they also impose to farmers to use technology to get this investment. There is many tools so that we link technology to research, to our expertise. If there is the three points, I think that we can produce food to Africa and to all the world.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Technology at the core of that aspiration. So final one is to Caleb. And Caleb, you're going to tell us a little bit about Wakulima as well. So make sure it's up. And there we go.
Thank you. Once again, my name is Caleb Sotum from Kenya. And in our organization, this is our group, we have an organization called Wakulima Solutions. This is a group of professionals, and they are youth entirely. So the youths have been looking for jobs to get employed in the government, in the NGOs, and they couldn't manage for those kind of jobs. And they are all professionals in agricultural sector. So we came up and we formed a group of professionals. We call ourselves a consortium, so that we then go ahead and seek for solutions for farmers. Any farmer who wants to do professionally in dairy sector, be it in fish industry, we have our team and we tender them and we give the work to our professionals. And in that case, we're becoming, what we actually do is capitalize our earn, because if farmers get directly to these professionals, they underpay them, and at times they normally give them allowances, not a real-time payment for the work they do. And with that, we've managed to really find a space for them. And of course, it is minimal, but we don't take it for granted, because we've actually internalized all the technologies that have been provided by the organizations, and we're applying to farmers, and they get the real-time technologies in the world, and they can apply and get the real solutions.
So your question, Caleb?
My question to the policy is, okay, we have this policy that has been there since time immemorial, and it is the land tenure. The fragmentation in Kenya, and I think in Africa in general, is always happening day in, day out. And for some of the crops, particularly in my country, like say wheat, requires a mechanization, because planting, harvesting, you need a combine harvester. A combine harvester cannot do a 1 acre harvesting, cannot do a 0.8 acre harvesting. It requires a huge land. But when fragmentation is done, it will entirely degrade that kind of value chain. And the government need to do something, or a solution need to be found for that case. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caleb. Thank you. So the question of land tenure. So ladies and gentlemen, we've got 5 themes. I'm going to come to you first, Dr. Florence, just to give you a little bit more time. And we've got 5 of these themes, but I want to just only pick on the ones that you really want to speak about. And I want to maybe just pick up with you. Which are the ones? So we've got the question on how do we practically create links between water, energy, and food. So when we talk about whole of government, what have you seen as a best practice where whole of government really works and it's not just rhetoric? The second one is how do you deal with the problem of imported products dominating the shelves in supermarkets, and how do we get more local products in? So what have you seen there? Alternatively, you can look at the question of and I think the question of how do we reach and talk to governments will take to Your Excellency. And then there's the question of how do we encourage farmers to really use technology, because the technology is what enables and opens up financing opportunities amongst others. And then any comment you have on land tenure for Caleb. So the ones you're most comfortable with, and then the rest we'll put to His Excellency, and then we'll close.
Thank you. For the first question of how we link energy, agriculture, food, and
water.
I think it's more with a multi-sectoral approach.
Okay.
That's the best solution, because as my brother was saying, there is a lot of competitive priorities for the government, and when it comes to like advocating for food, advocating for energy, advocating for water, like all are needed to make sure like everything can land. The only best approach I always see as the most advantageous and sustainable, it's a sectoral approach to make sure that all those ministerial are coming together and see how they can uplift each other, and we make sure we deliver to each sector.
Yeah.
The second is how can we improve use of local production instead of being dominated by imported food. Here I can answer that I can say it's more than one approach. First, it's about food security even at local level. Because I think when we are importing a lot of food, it's maybe issue of food insecurity. We are not having enough maybe to use in our country. Second, it's about the supply chain. Sometimes those smallholders, farmers, they may not even having enough skills when it comes to marketing, looking for those big consumers, and then this will be a limitation of someone who are there in a rural area to link up with that hotel or that big consumers when it comes to selling their product. Thirdly, it's an issue of qualities. As we are talking about these smallholders farmers, there is an issue of post-harvest loss. And most of the time, they are struggling on how we can trying to use with that rotten food, especially nutritious food, the time they are harvesting. So we really need to learn some best practices from those who are successful or working on the appropriate technology of managing post-harvest losses, because they end up not using it in a proper way, of which I can give maybe an example of tomatoes. Some they may be needing tomato, like fresh tomatoes, but when you are having that bigger post-harvest loss, you can transform it in another way. But when it comes to proper technology to use and appropriate approach to modify the production, some of smallholders farmers, they don't have good access. The fourth, it's about technology, or what I really want to comment about. We have been discussing this outside, saying we are here discussing availability of amazing solution when it comes to technology. Somewhere they are having access to land, but what is really the problem? But here what I really want to say, apart from developing those amazing solutions, how are we able to go back in the community and even helping those people who are in the community that we feel like are smallholders, farmers, are able to adopt those good solutions. We are still lacking the point of capacity building when it comes to adopting the appropriate technologies, and it's very important for smallholders farmers to adopt this technology so that they can improve the harvests.
Well said. Thank you very much, Dr. Florence. Your Excellency, let's start off with Yvette's question. What is the best way to reach and have a pathway of communication between young people and government? It's a question that's come up more than once this afternoon. Do you think that there's a better way to the way we've been doing it?
Thank you. As we are at the end, I will speak in Portuguese. I don't know if the translator...
No, translators are here. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. É nosso ponto de vista que, tendo o governo jovens, e nós temos uma instituição chamada Secretaria do Estado da Juventude e Emprego, portanto, é uma instituição do governo chefiada por um secretário de Estado jovem. Este tem a conexão com as várias organizações de jovens que são empreendedores e são apoiados pelo governo nos vários projetos de emprego.
Excuse me, apologies, Your Excellency. Just to the translators, there is no English translation. Can you please assist with that? My apologies, Your Excellency. Let's try it again.
Is the translator there?
Yes, yes, we can hear now.
Thank you. Como ia dizendo, a partir da experiência que Moçambique tem, nós temos uma instituição no governo que se chama Secretaria do Estado de Juventude e Emprego. Esta instituição foi criada para poder integrar os jovens empreendedores na implementação da política do governo para a concessão de emprego, sobretudo aqueles jovens empreendedores. Então, a política está desenhada no sentido de todos os levantamentos efetuados nas várias áreas de produção sejam do conhecimento do governo, para que o governo possa implementar esses apoios que a juventude necessita para se empregar. E dizer que entre esses projetos há um projeto que se designa Emprega, que prevê até o ano de 2025 empregar 50.000 jovens. Este é o objeto deste programa. E ainda mais, dizer que no programa que o governo traçou, ele projetou que cada um desses jovens que virão a ser empregados se tornem empregadores de outros mais jovens. Isto é, replicar, multiplicar os empregos a partir deste grupo-alvo. Thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to please join me by giving our panel a really big round of applause. A really, really big round of applause. I certainly hope that we captured the questions, because I thought the questions were absolutely excellent. They were very robust, of a high quality, and that's the kind of questions we need to be bringing into these conversations. I particularly like the question around how do we make whole of government practical and a real experience and not something that we just talk about. I want to thank, of course, His Excellency Miquidade for his time and insights, of course, to Dr. Florence, Sibomana, and to thank each and every young entrepreneur on the stage and on the floor for really coming into this conversation with their voice. Now, to keep it seamless, I'm just going to ask us to please hold our seats, and we are going to then ask Dr. Agnes Kalibata to please join us on stage at the podium as she now extends just her closing remarks, and then when she's done with her closing remarks, we can then all descend off stage together. Let's give her a round of applause as she comes up.
So, Moderator, thank you so much for having me. As you can see, I kept coming in and going because I wanted to be sure that I'm part of this conversation. I actually just missed a major conversation over there to be here. So just to say that there's no better place to be. But if I can, as you, sitting among those kids, I honestly did not know it was you. So how old are you? Like, I thought it was one of those kids over there. So if I can be like you, come and disappear among those young people and everybody thinks I'm one of them, then I'll do it anytime. So good, but thank you for having me. The conversations you're having here are extremely important. I've been listening, and some of the challenges you're bringing out are extremely important as well. And what we would like to do is to really find ways of putting a spotlight on all the conversations you bring out here. Whether it's the challenges you're having as you try to engage as young people, to have jobs, to create businesses, whether it is all the things you're talking about around policy environments, skills, challenges, and all that, you can count on us as a partner. Africa has, I just want to be clear that Africa has no future if its future is not about investing in young people. So we do recognize that with a 70%, 66 to 70% population that is young youth, we really have no other way but to invest in youth. What your voice does is to make sure that the things we invest in count, that we don't become prescriptive when you actually do have a voice. So what I learned in the Food Systems Summit was nothing without us, nothing about us without us. So you maintain that. Don't allow anybody to determine your future. Don't allow anybody to mess with your future. Because there's a whole lot of things that are going on right now. And you have a voice, you have an opportunity, and you have the numbers. Isn't that huge? You have the numbers. You're basically an army walking. Make it productive in the sense that when you raise your voice, when you educate yourselves, when you do right, you can change the world. So let's start with this sector that has been extremely elusive. The sector, the business of feeding ourselves. And why do we need to do it? Because if we don't, in 2030, we'll be a poor continent. A continent that is full of young people that are poor, because you will not be young anymore. You'll be adults that are poor, and your children will be poor. Is that really where I want to be? So don't blame nobody. Just try to do what you can do. Let's try to do what we can do. That's what these meetings are about. That's what these platforms we provide are about. So use us, work with us, and let's really work together to redefine and shape how the agricultural sector works. We can change this sector. Yes, today I think it's the chair who said that something about a proverb they have in Ethiopia about dealing with the agricultural sector is like trying to kill a lion, right? We're not trying to kill a lion, we are trying to build a lion. So be part of building that lion. So that when we talk about, there's a time they were talking about, Mackenzie had something about the lions on the move. And those were countries in Africa. You are going to define the lion on the move. That's the Africa continent that you're going to define. So I look forward to working with you and to supporting you in everything you do as you define your world and you define your lion. Thank you.
So we're just going to take a group photo. If I can invite also our entrepreneurs in the front row to join us. And ladies and gentlemen, that will also signify the end of the session. Thank you so much for your time and thank you so much for having me.